Hey there, welcome to another video on Level Up with Ismail. Today we're going to learn about an amazing tool which is called as the Eisenhower Matrix, or also referred to as the priority matrix. So it's a task management tool that will kind of help you to organize and prioritize your tasks into urgent and important. So let's look at this model, understand how do we use it, all of that as we proceed. So first, a little history about this model. So this model was derived or was inspired by the President of the United States, the 34th President, of course, who was Dwight E. Eisenhower. Why him? Because his knowledge or he was exceptional when it came to time management skills and decision making, which was developed during his military time or military regime and as he was the President of the United States. Now, was this actually or where did this concept come from? So the concept came behind the quote, which was of course attributed to Eisenhower, which is, "I have two kinds of problem: the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent." So this is the concept, or this is where people came up with this model. So it was not Eisenhower himself who built the model. So there were a lot of others who kind of got the inspiration from him and then develop. So one such example is Stephen Covey, who kind of defined or further developed this model into what we see today. So this model is kind of divided into four quadrants. If you see, we have the important and the urgent. So basically, what and all you need to do. The important but not urgent. So what do you do with those kind of tasks? So you would need to schedule them. You definitely need to do them, but then you would need to schedule. Then there are tasks that is not important but is definitely urgent. So what do you do with these tasks like this? So this is where you would need to delegate these tasks. So those of you who are also finding it difficult, on what are the tasks that we need to delegate or I need to delegate, then this is those tasks. And of course, we have those time wasters which we need to delete or eliminate. Those are the tasks which is not important and not urgent. Let's kind of look at these details with a little more examples so that it is clearer for you. So the first one is, of course, the do first. So if you see here, once again, this is definitely important and it is also urgent. So these are tasks. Imagine, so now here is an example that I've given you. Imagine you have a report that is due, which is end of the day. This goes in the do first box because you need to get it done as soon as possible. So that is the do, which is urgent and important. Now, another classic example that I can give you to understand this better is, let's assume all of us pay the electricity bill. Let's assume that this is due end of the month, right? So is it important? Definitely. But is it urgent? No, because you have time. So what do you do? But what usually happens, we end up not doing it and then it becomes urgent and important. So imagine suddenly that the electricity bill is due today. What happens? It's become both important and urgent. And then I don't know how many of you have noticed this, right? So when you are in a hurry, when you want to get things done, suddenly maybe no, your phone is not working, or the system is down, or you're not able to find the bill. All of this happens, and we get into something also known as the firefighting zone, right? So sometimes this is also referred to as the fireman's model. Okay, so first you need to focus on these tasks which is important and urgent. So the do first. So the next quadrant is where we look at things that are important. They're definitely important, however, they're not urgent. So for example, that I've given here, you're planning for a presentation next week. And like I mentioned, it is important. That presentation is important. So what do you do? Though it is not due now, you start working, you set aside some time today so that you start working on that, or you start scheduling that presentation or start working on it. Now, the same example can be looked at, maybe as we proceed, we will look at it in another example, right? But that is your schedule. So all those tasks which is important but not urgent, you need to schedule. And maybe let me also give you some example as a leader or a manager. Now, let's assume you have a one-on-one discussion with your team members. You know that is important, but it is not urgent. But when does it become urgent? Suddenly the person decides to leave or serves his or her notice period. That's when it becomes both urgent and important. So schedule those. So plan whatever are the activities that you need to do. Another example is on skill development. You know it is not required maybe right now, but eventually for you to grow in your career, you need to focus on that skill. So it is not urgent, but then important. So you schedule, set aside some time so that you are able to focus on that skill that is required. So that is the scheduling. Okay, so that is the second quadrant. And now let's move on to the third quadrant, which is delegate. And which task do you delegate? Again, if you see those are urgent, the task is urgent, but then they're not that important. So these tasks needs to be done soon, but not necessarily by you. For example, organizing team files or planning for a get together or planning for some meeting or a sports day, Friday fun, all of that. Yes, of course, it is definitely maybe urgent, but not important. Your involvement is not required. So what you can do is you can delegate these tasks, give it up maybe to your colleagues or your team members, however, or whatever role that you're performing. So you focus on the tasks that you can delegate. And then we have the last, which I think majority of us sometimes are kind of guilty of, which is which is wasting our time. Okay, and we need to eliminate these. So it's called as the time wasters. And I'm also guilty of it. I'm not saying no. Sometimes, we look at that reel or one shot is what we think, and then we go into that infinite loop of looking at those reels. So they're not urgent and they're not important. Like spending too much time on social media. It's fun, but it can wait until you have more free time. So you finish all of those tasks. So I'm not saying you don't need free time. I'm not saying don't look at reels. I'm not saying don't spend time on social media. But then if you've completed all of those other quadrants, then this is where you will get more time. And there's another beautiful, right? The rock and the pebble activity. If you've seen that, so what happens? So if you fill your jar, the 24 hours with your time wasters, then what happens? You don't have time for anything else. That is what happens. So what do you need to do with them? You need to delete them or eliminate. So that is what you need to do, right? So let's move on. So let us do some practice now that you've understood, and maybe once again a quick look at how this looks like. So we have the important and urgent. So these are things that you definitely need to do. Things that are important but not urgent. What do you need to do with them? You need to schedule them. Things that are not important but urgent, you can delegate them. Things that are not important and not urgent, you need to eliminate or delete them. Let us know now that you've understood these, what I want you to do is I want you to take some time and plan, right? I have some questions here. If you see, I want you to answer that question. Take your time, think through under which box. There's just four questions there, and think through under what box would each one of these go. So the first one is your project update is due in the next 2 hours. What do you think? Is it urgent, important? Do you need to do what do you need? Which quadrant does this fall under? One is which is urgent and important, also known as the do quadrant. So do you think this falls under the do schedule? What do you need to do? If you answered do, then you're right. You know that this is due in the next 2 hours and it is important, so both needs to be done now. You need to prepare a proposal for your next week's meeting, right? It is an important proposal, but it is due next week. So what would you need to do with this? Think of the answer and let me know. Of course, you need to schedule it or schedule it, however you want to pronounce it. And the next one we have is you have to arrange a team lunch. So now few of you might be telling or thinking, Ismail, this is both important and urgent, especially if you're a foodie like me. You would say, Ismail, this is like, I need to do this. No, I don't trust anybody else on doing this. But then whatever said and done, right? I'm sure it is not your not worth your time. So what would you do with something like this? You would delegate it to somebody who's good at it. Maybe identify somebody who's a foodie or who enjoys food like you or me, and then go ahead and delegate it to that person who maybe understands your taste, right? Okay, so that will help. So delegating those tasks, and of course, checking out the latest memes online. So what do we do with this, right? I'm sure again there are a few of you who might want to prioritize this, but then if you want to grow in your career, if you are looking at moving in your career or feeling a sense of worth by end of the day, then of course you would need to eliminate these or delete it, right? So these are some things that I thought kind of can help us to understand this further. What I wanted to do is, of course, there's an activity that you can also plan. I wanted to grab some paper, a piece of paper, and draw those four big squares. And of course, you need to divide it into smaller squares. First is the do first, then the schedule, delegate, and eliminate. And now write down the task. So how do you do this? So maybe let me kind of also explain how do you use this model. So first is list down all those tasks that you need to work on. What and all are the different tasks that you need to work on? List it down. Don't eliminate. Don't think. Okay, some tasks is small, big, all of that. Just first get all of those things that you need to do, all those tasks in a paper. Then go ahead and now put those into those respective quadrants. If you don't like drawing or putting it into a box, you can actually just do like, do, schedule, delegate. So now you have an idea as to what and all are the things that you need to focus on. So that way you will be able to look at your focus areas, the areas that you need to focus on. So first, once again, list down the tasks, and then against that, do, schedule, delegate, or eliminate. What is it that you want to do? If you like all the D's, then you can use, instead of eliminate, you can also use for delete. Okay, so those are things that you can do. So I hope you found the video useful and you were able to understand the Eisenhower matrix, or the urgent important matrix, or the priority matrix a little better. Okay. For more such videos, of course, you can follow our WhatsApp channel. We have created a WhatsApp channel where I will be sharing some tips on growing in your career. You can also, of course, subscribe to our channel where I will be sharing videos on productivity, on affirmations, etc., for you to grow in your career. Feel free to also contact me at the email address that is mentioned. You can also visit my website for more details. Okay. Another request that I have is, if you have some tasks, right? If you have completed, you have a list of tasks, why don't you put that in the comments? And maybe what would you do? Do you want to delete them? Do you want to delegate them? Do you want to eliminate them? So put those in the comments so that it would definitely help others as well. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Till then, have a smiley day.